to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our Vice Chair will now read the public input statement.
Hi, good evening. The first public input session is a 21-minute session with each person having no longer than 3 minutes. Do we say 2 minutes?
So this is a 10-minute, because it's a workshop.
Right, but
2 minutes.
2 minutes, right? So a total of 10 minutes, 2 minutes each to make a statement, but a second public input session may be held at the end of the meeting if allowed by the board chair. Each speaker will give his or her name, address, and reason for speaking. Public input is designated for district residents, but the board chair may grant non-residents the opportunity to address the board. Statements concerning subject matter that falls under the law regarding executive sessions, for example, matters involving personnel cannot be made during public input, and I believe for this session, this has to be related to the budget workshop, nothing outside of that topic for tonight. We as a community pledge to treat each other as we wish to be treated. We pledge to seek understanding where there may be disagreement. Regardless of outcomes or opinions, we pledge to move forward with respect. This is time for comments and or questions, but please be aware that they may not be able to be answered at this meeting.
Thank you. So we'll start out. Does anyone in the audience, please, if you have any public input, could you step to the podium? Mr. Lighty.
This one is.
The one in front of you, push
This one?
the button. Yep. There you go.
Hello? All right, cool. I'm just coming up here saying that, sorry, Matt Leggett, 11 Main. I'm opposed to pretty much any increase to the budget, and it's because of the way our school has performed last year. We, again, still only have half the kids that are performing academically and reading. Like 20% can do academics at grade level in science. There is nobody in this district, nobody, that's getting a raise for doing 20% of their job. No one. Last year there were huge raises. Administration got big raises. Like, we continue to give raises to people who are not doing their job. The core function of school is to have kids do academics at grade level. That's the basic function of this building. Nothing else should matter. That kids come out of here educated is the only thing that matters. If you're not doing your job, the only way we can test that is through standardized testing or talking to seniors that leave here to see how they're doing. That's the only way the public can find out if the school's doing well. Standardized testing or talking to a senior that's graduated. And if you talk to the seniors, the majority of them are not prepared for life. They're not. And we look at their standardized testing and we fail. Why are we giving raises to anybody? Why is the budget going up at all? I understand it's hard. Prices of everything have increased. That means administration is going to have to figure that out. But this board should say, no, we aren't going up on the budget one dime because we're not performing. Because nobody here in this district that sends their kids gets a raise when they don't do their job. Nobody. That school is doing it is just ridiculous. It's not fair to everyone that pays taxes to pay for someone to get a raise that isn't doing their job. So I hope this board shoots down any budget that increases at all, and I hope the board figures out how we either change our curriculum or do something to get our NWA, our testing up, and be able to talk to seniors and find out that the majority of them are doing very well in college or in their job or wherever they go after school.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to make a statement? Okay, before we get into the full agenda, we would like to add one item, a executive session for a personnel issue. That would be executive session 403-6B, and we'd like to add that to the end of the meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Second? We have a motion to approve, we have a motion to change the agenda to reflect an executive session for personnel issue at the end of the meeting. All those in favor? And opposed? And the motion passes.
recap what we're doing this evening. We are going through some of the cost centers that we did not finish working through on Saturday. And from there, one of the biggest topics that for this evening after that part of the discussion is personnel. There were a lot of things that came up from that meeting, but because there were several pieces about personnel, that's the topic we're gonna address this evening. And that should probably take us to 2 hours. So, before we do that, we do have some updates that we wanna make sure that you receive for
Thank
your.
you.
Thank you.
Hold it down.
Hold it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to fix it, sorry.
It's like it punishes.
Yeah.
We just wanna make sure you have some updates, so, they are coming around and they're new tabs. So you wanna look through to make sure they're paper clipped, so make sure the tabs go where they need to go. So-
Are they replacing our old tabs?
Yes,
Yeah.
so you can take them out, you can use, go ahead.
I would leave them so that you can refer to them again, like you can just place them on top. The dates at the bottom will tell you what version.
I don't want to mess up your binder.
And we'll just give you a minute to look through them and put them in the binder.
Because early papers in the audience and
I don't know exactly what you have, to be honest, but most of the changes I've done so far are not, they are typos, they are, you know, correcting a formula if it was a little wonky, it's those types of things.
So like for Lebanon, it was, under the stipends, it listed a different school instead.
So it was the typo.
We also have an updated copy of the staff list with the, like, who's doing what.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, thank you. I'm also gonna pass out the total number of IEPs and 504s and enrollment documents. And that can go in tab 122, however you wanna put it. They need your staff.
We also have, now that those are out, we'll hand out the projected enrollment for next year by school, by grade, by section. And again, maybe 19, tab 19. And when you look at this document, you do see that we did put in parentheses we'll start with tab 18, which is nursing.
So I'll go over that with you guys. If we look at, the second page, which is the detail by expense category.
So you're good with it.
Okay, so basically, to be honest with you, this is all just contractual salary increases. We haven't increased the number of nurses we've maintained throughout the district. And it's just the contracted salary increases. Same with piece through the benefits, piece of that. Other than that, if you go down to total purchase contracted services, there is an increase to the contracted services health center. That is, we have a contract with, York Hospital, to be our sort of standing provider. And so they were $2,000 per year for their services to us, and they increased to $2,200. So they allow us to get, prescriptions and take care of like any standing orders, things like, the EpiPens and things like that. Then, they reduced their supplies, they've been kind of tightening it up and trying to provide that. Oh, based on the student numbers, great, yeah. So they cut it by $5 a student, is that how they looked at it?
We're allowing for $5
Yeah.
a student, so that is like, because our student enrollment is dropping.
Yeah.
We kind of mirror that.
Thank you. And then equipment, we actually purchased a little bit more equipment last year, and they were not meeting the upgrade, they went throughout the buildings and everybody's in pretty good shape, so they only have very minor adjustments that need to be made. The memberships are staying the same. This is a pretty tight budget, they really are not, they were not asking for anything. And that, I'm open to whatever questions you might have.
Does this include the new medicines they have to keep on staff now, for like the new policy that they just introduced? For, like, the
Yes, it does.
Narcan and
Yep.
stuff like
But
that?
yeah. Questions about that? All right.
Can I just ask,
Sure.
there's a $10,000 stipend.
Yeah, so that is for, our nursing director, so, which is Ann Crichton, and she oversees all the nurses. They pull together the PLCs, but she's also our go-to when we have any questions regarding the actual medical pieces of the district. She's very, very good, and then she does all the supervision for the full nursing staff as well.
All right, so the next group that we're looking at is tab 6. And that's multilingual learners, community engagement, school health coordinator, family programs.
Yeah. So I don't know if you guys had time to just look through the overview regarding, this is the catch-all category, to be honest with you. So the MLL teacher, we have one teacher who services the entire district for students with multi-language. So she moves around and sets her schedule based on that. We also do have a person at the high school who is an addition, is it one day a week? Is that what it is?
I don't know the specific.
Yeah, AJ knows. So
But it's partial.
she's actually a foreign language teacher for us who also does a piece of time with Christine Howley, yeah. So is it a block?
She does a couple of blocks
Okay.
in that role, and I think one of them, because she's passionate about that, she's willing to work with some students during some, like prep times, so it's a little tricky to tell how much time each, but she is a huge resource.
Yes. So that, if you look And then everything else is pretty much the same right down across the board. She decided, we try to send Christine to a national conference at least like once a year, and so mostly it's really gone into every other year for her. There is not a lot in Maine that actually supports that, the multi-language learners in terms of professional development, so we try to get her out there at least every other year to connect. So that's where any of the travel and that kind of stuff is related to. She also does travel in district, which is why we have that line there. She works really hard to use her day so that she spends a day at school versus wandering, but it just depends on things within the district. And honestly, things fluctuate throughout the year. We get move-ins and we have to go and move up. Questions regarding that piece? Okay, so moving over to the Community Engagement Center, that one has been whittled down more and more and more throughout the years. There's a portion of an ed tech who just monitors and takes care of the community closet that we have. She works with the backpack program at some level as well, and does a lot of, well, just reaching out, working actually with the ELO folks here at the high school as well, setting up the business. She has good communication with Pratt Whitney, with the shipyard, that kind of thing. So she participates in those pieces. The rest of her job is actually in, she's a regular in tech in the special ed program, the access program with us. So these are the pieces there, very minor increase in her salary, and then she actually reduced their supplies and books down by $5,000. So her expenses actually are even down. And our last is our school health coordinator, and that is a no longer. So we no longer have our school health coordinator. We have excellent health teachers and PE folks, and they work together. And David Vargas actually has taken over the wellness group so that he pulls them together and they talk about, keep continuing the wellness program that Erin used to do. So, a reduction of that. And then the last one is our 504 ADA homeless counts across the game. This is actually, we reduced our tutoring because that has been less useful for whatever reason, which is fine. And so we just, this is based on the funding used. And then we did increase the supplies and books piece, but it's really not an increase because the buildings have been sort of absorbing costs for 504s and things like that. So we tried to instead set aside some funds district-wide so that we can utilize that. Things happen where kids come in and they might need something electronic that we need to provide with 504s, that piece of it. So that is pretty much the overview of everything.
The Community Engagement Center, that's not a stipend, it's like a separate position. It's
So,
just us, right, and then.
It has, over the years, we used to, it was grant funded for many years, and then it was, we had a full-time ed tech three who did that role. And then over the years, we've just whittled away into it, and so she's actually moved into a regular special education position, but has maintained this portion of her salary to just, which was at 2 years ago.
So, who manages the 504 things in the district?
So, in general, I'm the person who does the big overview, but really it's our counselors and principals in each of the buildings.
Advanced Career and Technical Education at Sanford Regional Technical Center. And we do not have a lot of, kind of say in this per se, because this is the tuition to send our students to SRTC. So currently we have 110 students at SRTC, and the numbers that we received from Sanford is that they are going to expect to accept up to 124 students next year for us. So that will be an increase. So thus their projection for the tuition includes that increase in students and then an increase in tuition. So. And then we'll go on to tab 4, which is debt service. And debt service, I always like presenting this one. So this one is based on buildings, largely the buildings. So when we say we don't have debt, it is because our buildings are currently paid off, correct?
What happens is this category is reserved for debt that relates to state-approved projects. So if the state approves a new building for us, we would go through there and the debt would appear in this section. The things we've done previously with the buildings, the HVAC and other projects, because they were initiated by us, they are not the state-sponsored category. So that's why this is 0, but we keep it in there just to remind people, and I'm sure one day in the future we'll need it.
Thank you. And then the last one we're going to look at tab-wise, well, cost center-wise, is going to be system administration, that's tab 23. So just as a reminder from Saturday, we have salaries and wages, and Denise spoke to the salaries and wages and benefits on Saturday, just kind of talking about some similarities that we're gonna see throughout the cost center, so this is reflected in that. We'll talk about a couple of those areas that have increased. So for legal fees, we are negotiating 2 contracts next year, so we did increase our legal fees just because from time to time we do have, we work with the law firm to just make sure that everything is in compliance with what we need to do for employment purposes. And then if we need any kind of, double checking of things, we do use that. Our biggest expense here is advertising. And Indeed, or anytime you use like that kind of a platform, it is much more expensive than School Spring. However, we are not, School Spring is very limited with how it goes out to folks, and Indeed has a wider audience. So we've been able to put some of our positions like our drivers, our custodians, school nutrition, specific biology teachers, some of those positions go on Indeed, so there's just a wider range of candidates that look through those different kind of vacancies, so we continue to use that, but it is more expensive, so that is reflected there. I do want to go back up to communication under salaries and wages, I apologize for that. There is a decrease there. We are proposing to eliminate the position of the Director of Communications, primarily because we have done a lot of work at the school levels to make sure that the communication, the newsletters, the Facebook, the social media pages are up and running for that. We've done some different kinds of work throughout the district, like the newsletter, the annual report. We have a lot of templates already in place that we're using to work through that. So you'll see that there's a decrease in that area. We also know that some of this position works with us to support board meetings, but we have some stipends that we're going to be able to offset some of that so that we do have some technical assistance at the board meetings, because that does come up sometimes so that is that. And then I think if you turn to the second page, we do have an increase under dues, for $2,400 in membership fees, and those are just, we're not going to move, we're not signing up for new things, it's just an increase in the area.
And one of the things that we participate in is a regional service center. So it is a combination of many school districts that get together and we do various things. This last year, we held all-day training, one for central office and financial staff, and one for custodians and maintenance workers. And historically, the Regional Service Center has had enough to cover some of those costs, because we all chip in to kind of fund them. And there's the potential we may have to kick in some money this year, so I wanted to just make sure some of that was there and available.
Can I just make a comment on cutting the communications position? I'm not a fan of that because it directly relates to our strategic plan, and I don't know as I feel like we've gotten to some point where we've solved that problem. I still think we have a long ways to go to make sure that we're communicating out to the district what we need to. So, not a fan of that cut personally.
We also, some of the remaining funds in that section is we had a 2-year plan to continue to look through the websites, all of the web pages. We still have money in there allotted for that because we started that this past summer. It will continue on through this summer so that everything is updated. So, but
Right, yeah, I hear you, and I know there are
Yes.
pieces, but I think the thing that is missing is that leadership piece of somebody who's overseeing that and really driving it, and I think we've seen some significant gains because of that, and taking that way now seems a little precipitous to me.
So that's a conversation, right?
Yes, conversation. Okay.
Nancy?
Yeah, I was gonna ask about the website.
Okay. And then let's move into fund, do you wanna do fund balance next, Denise?
Sure.
So that is tab 10, tab 10.
Okay. So, in our accounting, we have 3 primary fund balances that we have to work with. We have fund balance for the general fund, which includes this primary budget. We have fund balance for school nutrition and for adult education. And just briefly, fund balance is the amount remaining from the start of the district in 1967 through June 30 of 25. So through that time, we've had all of those years of budgets, and we've saved and spent different amounts of money. So when we're talking fund balance, we're talking about how much is left. It helps us, having a balance helps us if we are in a stretch and need it, but it also helps with cash flow because it helps have money on hand again for those unexpected expenses. And we don't have to worry if, something unexpected happens. So, right. So, the first one we'll go to is the general fund. I believe that's your page 1. And the estimated fund balance at June 30, 25 is $2.2 million. And we have some of that is non-spendable, meaning part of that balance goes to prepaid expenses, for example. So our dental bill for July of any year has to be paid in June, but it's really meant for July. So there's that crossover between fiscal years, and those things cannot be spent. So we take that prepaid out of the balance, which gives us unassigned fund balance of the $2.1 million. We have a proposal to use $445,000 in our, to cover the cost of some facilities projects. So we deduct that from the $2.1 million. And that would leave us approximately $1.7 million which is approximately 3.2%. So we're allowed by state law to have up to 9% of fund balance remaining.
Which is kind of new, right? It used to be 3%.
It used to be, it was 3% for many, many years. After COVID, they ramped up how much we could have in fund balance, and they brought it back down. But it really is a good fiscally responsible thing to have fund balance. We used to carry somewhere around 750,000 was a rough target for us. Each payroll now is anywhere from $1.2 million to like $1.5 million. So having 1.7 is a bit more than a payroll for us. So it's good to see it at 3%, and of course, we'll continue to try to grow that each year. Again, just to be financially responsible. We can go to the school nutrition page. And every part of this has different rules. School nutrition, again, is a similar concept. Our estimated fund balance at the end of June of '25 was $872,000. Deducting the non-spendable portion and the amount used in the fiscal '26 budget leaves approximately $709,000. We are proposing to use $186,000 of this to end at a balance of $523,000. Now with school nutrition, you are capped, I believe, at 3%, and if you have more than that, you have to write a letter to the state telling them what your plan is to get it down to the balance that where you're supposed to have. We have, over the years, we've been in places where the district has had to pay into school nutrition to make it zero. So the school nutrition program was not funding itself. Since COVID, it's been able to fund itself. And so that's why our spending down is really an effort to make sure equipment is replaced. Use it for the one-time purchases, not for ongoing expenses, but for one-time purchases so that when the money is gone, we're not digging a hole for ourselves, because that's the thing, right? Because someday you will have spent it, and if you rely on ongoing salaries or benefits or something, where are you gonna get the money from at that point? So this one-time purchase for equipment and such things is how we need to spend it down.
Do you know what that, 523 is relates to as a percent?
As a percentage. Let me see here. I can get that for you. Let me do that at a break. And then adult education again. Similar concept, but adult education doesn't really have any parameters that I'm aware of. You can't have too much or too little. Though I think if we went negative with the overall expenses in adult education, the district would have to cover whatever that overage is. We have $184,000 at June 30 of '25. We are using $76,000, almost $77,000 in fiscal '26 toward the budget. And we're proposing to use $58,000 for the '27 budget, which would leave us approximately $48,000. So what we're doing, and you'll notice in the budget for adult ed, we're increasing the cost of the local share. We're going from $150,000 for the 3 towns to $175,000 to step out of using this fund balance. We do have a separate account for enrichment, which are all the classes you see in the great flyers and booklets they send out. And if there is money there, we sweep that over to fund part of the adult education. So Some years you'll see it in the budget, other years it will just happen if there's extra. But that is fund balance in a nutshell. I know it can be confusing, but.
Okay, wait a second, there's a dumb question. So where it says additional amount used to reduce taxpayer burden, has that already been moved over to someplace in the budget? Or is this something that we give back to the towns?
This is something that we move in the budget. So when you look at the revenue part of adult education, for example, one of their revenue streams to offset expenses is this 58,000. Yep.
Rolls us right into that.
We did not cover school nutrition last time. So as Denise was talking about that fund balance piece for school nutrition, we should look at that. David is at Knowlton School right now at an event, and Michelle is here, thank you for coming. But that's where he is. So he was in Washington over the weekend, and now he's at Knowlton School. So we should take a look at the school nutrition, which is tab 21.
We'll do this together.
So there are no changes to staffing levels. And I'll preface this by saying this is what I know from David, and if you have specific questions, I'll do my best. There are no staffing increases other than contractual increases. Medical and dental and all the benefits again. We went over that last weekend, but essentially we budget for the positions we have in the budget. We budget for what people are actually taking today. So if they're on a family plan today, we assume there'll be a family plan next year. And we put forth a 5% increase to both medical and dental for the coming year. Let's see, most of the others, again, are a percentage of salary. The other category, again, I haven't updated it, I will. Other category includes things like unemployment, workers' compensation, FICA. So those are the other things that are appearing in that category. So David reduced professional development. He indicated that he's hosting some things this year, so he doesn't have to pay to go. And we'll therefore be saving a little bit of money there. The computer maintenance expenses increased. We added 2 new vending machines this year, and they're connected to the student point of sale system, so they can enter their numbers in and use the vending machines outside of kitchen hours. We have the preventive maintenance. We are allocating $10,000 for that annual maintenance to equipment in the kitchens, and an additional $35,000 for regular school maintenance. When you go down to supplies, this is where a big category is food expenses and non-food expenses like trays, napkins, all kinds of, again, non-food, could be small utensils and things as well. And he is anticipating that these will go down a bit, the cost of the things he's doing. When you get down into equipment, let's see, he would like to update the middle and high school with TV screens in the cafeteria, and new point of sale stations are also included in this. Large equipment includes $25,000 for a combi oven at the Hanson School, $2,500 for a new serving line at Hanson, $2,500, let's see, where's my list? $2,500 for a new serving line in North Berwick at the elementary school, and the high school is looking at an $8,000 ice machine. I assume to help with like menus, and if there are, you know how they do like that chili taste off, and, you know, different things like that. I assume it's a combination of, menu and promotion about things that are coming. So then there's a decrease in the smallwares he's asking for. Those usually are meat slicers, a Vitamix, a blender, those smaller things that they need in the kitchens, that don't qualify as a large piece of equipment. We have some memberships and fees, kitchen licenses, and a very modest increase for the year. And again, these expenses don't combine with the district budget, they stand alone, and they're in their own fund. Down below those expenses, you see the revenue categories. And he has a very complicated calculation and estimates for these numbers. So I don't know all the details, but you can see there's slight decreases in estimates for subsidy and for student and adult a la carte sales. He is looking at a little bit of an increase, $2,500 for more catering. So if somebody's having a meeting in the building, they can arrange with food service to bring coffee and muffins and things like that. He is increasing his bank interest. We have a robust interest rate currently, and he's thinking he can support another $10,000 in that area. And then again, fund balance. So that's part of the revenue, right? It offsets the expenses because we've already collected it. And so you see on his $2.4 million budget, the increase is $24,000 and change. The other thing that happened, so we have this separate fund for school nutrition. We also, in the district budget, historically, in category 11, which is other, we had a $25,000 contingency for school nutrition. Again, it got started back when school nutrition wasn't able to kind of cover their own expenses. And we think at this point, we've had enough years of not using it that we can take it out of the local budget. And if we get to a point where school nutrition is cutting it close and may not have the funds to replace a combi oven or something mid-year, we can take a look at putting that back in. But I think at this point, it's a safe bet to take that out.
Any questions on school nutrition? Okay, so now revenue, tab 20.
Okay. Okay. So this sheet allows me to, in the top line, have the proposed budget, whatever budget we think we're at. So this one that we proposed first round was $52,465,000 in expenses. And then the next part identifies sources of revenue that help to pay for that $52 million budget. The first line is our state subsidy. That's the ED 279 that we get, and that calculates again the state's idea of the basics for education. Last year we had some subsidy as we had to do higher hourly wages for our staff. That was where they put through the law where ed techs have to be 125% of minimum wage, I think, and all of the hourly staff have to be 115, I think those are the numbers. And so what they did for 1 year is they gave us a little bit of extra money till we could budget for it again ourselves. So that's not repeating in fiscal '27. The next line is high cost out-of-district placements. So when, in special education, when we have students that are placed outside in a program, based on their IEP, it costs money. For, a couple of years, we were down, I think, to 2 students, but they required long-term, they were going to be going to that school for a number of years. So what the state does, the state tries to put into the ED 279 an estimate for what they think it will have the coming year. And so what they estimate right now, I think, is just the 2 students. So if you look on page, I believe it's on page 3 at the top, that's where it'll tell you how much they're giving us in advance, basically, for the year. What we did is we said, well, we know we have 7 students. If they meet a certain tuition level, then the state kicks in extra to help us offset that. And so this is the amount we estimate we will receive in addition to the amount they already gave us in the ED 279. And Jerry, that's the ED 279, it's page 3 of that big, colorful spreadsheet.
Okay, I'm like,
Yeah, great, a little page here.
So we can show you that later. The next line, again, is the fund balance. That is the fund balance that we are proposing to cover the 5-year plan projects. And we can again talk about that in more detail later, but that is, you'll see that in the fund balance that we discussed just previously. And that is the number that correlates to that 5-year plan. The next thing is we had been talking about modular classrooms for Hanson School for a year or 2, I believe. And the state has a program for leased space, and you are allowed a one-time award, I guess I will call it, where if you have not used it before, for up to 5 years, the department will pay you $10 a square foot if you can prove to them that you need these additional spaces. So what we would do is, we'd have to answer questions about staffing, we'd have to answer questions about enrollment and how many spaces we have and what we need. And so this is my estimate, $14,400 for 2 modular units, and 7,200, they're 720 square feet each, times the 10 times 2. So I think that's to offset some of that expense. If we decide not to do the modulars, then I will need to take that out. We have the same amount budgeted for sports activity fees at $60,000. The miscellaneous revenue is going up by about $12,000. Miscellaneous revenue are all the things we receive that really are either we can't count on them consistently, or we don't know how much. There's not something we can use to estimate them. It would be the sale of a bus when Jeremiah takes it to the scrapyard. It would be a donation. It would be a refund of some kind. We've had instances where, we've had workers' comp refunds that are from 5 years ago. And it's not a lot of money, but they must be closing out and finalizing whatever year that is. So there are various things we get refunds, money for. In addition, this year, we are going to look at the food pantry in North Berwick to see if they can contribute a little bit to the running of that building. So that's why there's an increase. And historically, over time, that 30,000 has been pretty roughly good. Let's see, MHA student tuition. So in fiscal '26, we budgeted for 1 tuition student into Mary Hart Academy. And for fiscal '27, we're budgeting 2. We have 2 students that we believe will return for fiscal '27. We have bank interest of $140,000. We have received, we will receive more than that this year, but again, I don't wanna rely on it and keep increasing it every year, because I don't wanna get too close to that point where we're gonna go into the negative, where rates go down and things like that. Our interest rate is tied to the T-bill, and since we've done that, when we started, and this was many, many years ago, but we were just getting bank interest, and we probably collected $3,000 a month in interest. We right now can range, depending on how much is there, anywhere from $12,000 to $17,000 a month in interest, based on how we have it set up with our bank. So it's a very robust arrangement, and they're very good to work with. So we hope that continues for a long time. And then we have $3,000 for national board certification. We have an instructional staff member who is nationally certified in their area, and the state sends them a bonus, basically, of $3,000 for being nationally certified, because it's a very big process, it's a very big application, and there's lots to it. And then what we do is we get that $3,000 and then we pay it to the teacher. But it has to come through us in order for that to get paid. So, all of that revenue amounts to $23,455,000. All of that miscellaneous revenue.
The amount to taxpayers would go to 29 million and change.
The other important thing to break out here is the expenditures are increasing by 5.15. The school portion of the budget is increasing 9.82.
And then below that, when you
Factor in both the contribution for adult education, the amount contributed for everything is 9.86. Again, preliminary draft, we haven't gone back to change and modify things as discussed in these meetings, so this was just our best first draft. I did do the estimated cost to taxpayers on $100,000, and you guys wanted to hear those numbers. Again, very preliminary.
I'm gonna swap out your microphone.
Oh, so,
Thank you.
Sounds underwater.
I hope it's not me.
Can I ask you a question?
yeah,
Where do we see the additional amount used to reduce taxpayer burden from school nutrition and adult ed?
so you would have to go to their individual budgets.
Okay, so that's where that's gonna show.
Yes.
Thank you.
So again, at this point, $100,000 valuation in Berwick, I have $99.56. To Lebanon, I have 91.72. And for North Berwick, I have 60.52. Those are estimates based on the sharing of, the calculation, the local distributive calculation, which takes half of the rate from how many students you have compared to the other towns, and half the rate based on your valuation as part of the total. So you get an average, and that's how we approach those.
Denise, could you do those again, please?
Yes, Berwick at 99.56, Lebanon 91.72, and North Berwick 60.52.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that on $100,000? Sorry. Okay.
$100,000, yes.
And that's annual.
So
For
that's,
example, if you had a $300,000 house, take your town's number, multiply it by 3, approximately.
right,
Not set in
because,
stone.
yes, don't get Dwayne mad at me.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. No, Dwayne explained to me how, when we say this, then people get their property tax bills and it doesn't match, there is always some layer of, that's not what I was told. So you still have to take into account the town increases and other things, so, just, that's an approximation.
So this is just in addition to what the town comes up with what they do.
Right, so each town would have, I believe, a town budget as well as the school amount. So you add those together to come up with what they're gonna assess. You're welcome.
So we wanna talk about staffing, because that came up a lot. However, it probably makes sense to look at this revenue sheet and look at the, impact to taxpayers right now as a jumping off point. Just start talking about that, maybe eliminate with that, and then that could give us some guidance as we're going through some of those conversations that are coming up.
So last year, the 6.71, that was what we increased last year, right? If I look at that form, it increased last year by 6.7.
Yes, last year expenses went up by 1.15%, and the school portion went up 6.71.
So if we went to raise the taxes, and we don't wanna raise the taxes, but, let's say 6% versus 9%, how much do we need, how much do we get?
Good question. Let me just. So finding $1 million will bring it to 6.03.
What does that do to expenses?
3.15.
Just for giggles, 0% increase to expenses.
$2.6 million in savings would be negative 0.06.
Okay.
2.5 would be 0.14. So somewhere in that.
Can I ask, Denise, is there any chance, I know you're really busy, but could you give us a spreadsheet before the next meeting of what was just talked about, so that we could actually see, we need to reduce by this much to get here, we need to reduce by this much to get here. So we really know where we're driving, because I can't keep that in my head.
Absolutely. And so you just wanna know how much we need to decrease the budget in order to get to
Yeah,
a certain
a real simple.
percent,
yeah,
absolutely.
Really
That's-
simple, and maybe the number, the actual cost, so we, percentages and actual dollar
Yes.
numbers.
Okay, yep, absolutely.
Really simple, like,
Mhm.
because you imagine, I just can't keep it in my head.
Okay.
Would you also be the bond guru?
I'm sorry?
Would you also be the bond guru?
Maybe. Throw it at me, let me know.
'Cause I'd like to know how many outstanding bonds there are.
Okay, so that is going to be in your facilities and maintenance tab.
Okay. Which tabs?
I'm gonna rely on you guys to tell me.
It is, yeah, number 8.
And I'm sure it's on the second page of the expenses when you get there. There's a section called dues, fees, and bond repayment. So we recently paid off, a QSCB bond, which was back from 2009, 10, and 11, I think we had those bonds, and those were finally paid off in fiscal '26. Right now, on the books, we are paying back almost $69,000 for the 2020 SRRF, which puts sprinkler systems into the elementary schools. We are starting the repayment of the 2024 SRRF renovation bond. That was all the air quality and HVAC work. We have the, additionally, 2024, which was that $8 or $9 million bond through Bank of America that we're repaying at $777,000 a year. And then we have the overage for the Knowlton School, which is starting repayment in full at $49,000. And you can see there, I hope it printed, the end dates for those.
Some of them are off.
Some of them are kind of, the
2024 SRRF renovation for the ventilation air grade,
that ends in fiscal '36.
and the one before that, the sprinkler system.
The sprinklers end in fiscal '32, which sounds long ways away, but it's not as much as it used to be. The 2024, again, is fiscal '39, and then we have fiscal '36 for the Knowlton overage. So that's, $1 million a year we're investing in our facilities.
So were these all 20-year bonds?
12 to 15.
Yes, I don't believe, the one,
Okay.
the Knowlton one again was 10, as is the 2024. I think 15 was the sprinkler systems, I think that was a 15, and I believe that the HVAC bonds was Bank of America 15 as well.
So is there something here that tells me exactly how much was borrowed and the interest rates? I know we've talked about some of these, but
You do not have a document other than this document. What would you like to see?
I'd like to see the duration.
Okay.
So 12, 15 years, whichever it is. The monthly and you pay it annually?
Yes,
Do we-
usually, sometimes like the 777 is twice a year.
Okay, so I'd like to know what the payment method is.
Okay.
The percentage of the bond, the
Okay.
percentage rate of
Okay.
the bond. And that money for each one of the bonds in interest. What
Okay.
that's going to cost us over the.
So what I probably will do is get you a copy of the amortization schedules. It tells you when the payments are due, what's principal, what's interest, and then the bottom line for the duration of the bond.
That
Is
would be awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mhm.
It's why, if you look at it, you go, where do I start, right?
conversations that, we wanted to start with, even though we had, a starting conversation about the percentage to taxpayers, but we're coming up with that spreadsheet to kind of go through what that would look like and how much more we would need to adjust the budget for that. So is it premature, like, this is the question for you, is it, I wanna spend time, efficiently here. Does it make sense to talk about staffing? We don't have a kind of a figure right now as far as where you wanna land with that, like, is this a good time to have a preliminary conversation about staffing, and get some questions and concerns out there and have discussion? And then we can, finish that up next time as well. So I think it's gonna take a longer time, 45 minutes necessarily, but if there's another way you wanna spend this 45 minutes, we have like 3 more meetings, right? Two meetings.
And then we have to decide on the third meeting.
I wonder if it makes sense to talk about NIS since they are going under a big change and we do have some staff members concerned about that, and so maybe it would be helpful to have that conversation first. I don't know what other people think, but.
I agree, I'd like to have the whole staffing conversation first, and it's great to pick a number, but to pick a number and then go through it.
And that's right.
No context, really.
Here comes Mike, here's Mike.
Can I ask you, is there an electronic version of this anywhere? Like a PDF or something that's online,
It's online.
on the website?
It's on the
Yes.
website.
Thank you so much.
So Mike, could you just recap, your conversation with us on Saturday, talking about some of those changes, and if there are questions, that come forward, we'll go through that?
Great, thanks a lot. So the cuts at Noble Intermediate School would be 1 6th grade teacher, physical education teacher, a health teacher, an administrative assistant, behavior interventionist, an intervention coordinator, and then an unfilled restorative justice facilitator, ed tech. Yeah. Sure, 6th grade.
I can pass this document out, this document that's coming out. You're covered. Is all position adjustments. And we will have, AJ come up and talk about something that, just as about part 2 of his conversation, but we're gonna focus on, the intermediate school right now.
And again, this is all preliminary stuff, so.
So I guess like with the positions, there's been like the restructuring of it, I guess is, I'm curious, because now 6th grade is teens, so we wanted to go back to like a 5th grade, and how is that going to work, and are the teachers in charge of every subject, like a 5th grade?
So,
Elementary model.
right, so the vision is that pre-K to 6 elementary model. However, I think within that model, there's room to adjust. So that means that I talked with some 6th grade staff today, and we're really kind of trying to gather some ideas on what that could look like. So we're going from 10 to 9. 10 is a nice round number, block scheduling works that way. It also creates a really complicated schedule. Going to 9, I'm just gonna throw out a couple random ideas. don't hold me to any of them, but you could have a 5-person team and a 4-person team, and you could have, you know, the reading, writing, math, science, social studies on one 5, and then on the 4, you could have, like a writing, math, science, social studies, and then everybody teaches reading to their homeroom type of thing. You could do that. You could run situations where you have 3-person teams, where you have like a math, writing, reading, and so then they do 3 sections of math if you're the math person, if you're the reading person, 3 sections of reading, so on and so forth, and then that 4th block you have your homeroom, and then for maybe you could do some sort of version where like one semester you do social studies, and the second semester you do science, or maybe the whole day is kind of focused around those things. So there's a wide variety of things that make it so that it doesn't need to be like a 1st grade self-contained classroom. And I think that's really important. And also I would say at this stage of the game, I don't want to lock us into any one of those things, because it's really important that the teachers have some voice and choice and to be able to kind of chew on that. I think that's why we've been really successful this year. The teachers had a ton of ownership in what we look like, and it's working. And so I want to make sure that we continue that. And I understand that it would be really helpful if I could tell you exactly what it will look like, but I can tell you that even with, like, there's no doubt that we can open the doors in the fall with that staffing number. With any of those ideas, it will work to open the school.
So a lot of the districts around us are on the secondary school model, not the elementary school. So is that gonna put our 6th graders at a disadvantage as they go to middle school or into intermediate school?
I think that you could make an argument either way. And so I think that if we, however we run, if we ran the 5 and the 4, or the 3 sets of 3, that will allow students to transition, to go and sit and listen to another style of teacher, to be able to kind of get up and navigate the school. So there is some level of changing classes in both of those models. So outside of, and academically, I don't think it puts us at a disadvantage. I think that, of course, to say that social studies can be done in 1 semester compared to right now a full year, of course there is some level of a loss there, but reading, writing, math, I think is one of those are the skills that allow science and social studies to be accessible down the road, and also those are the things when we're measuring, I think that it will support. So I don't know if I answered well, but
Yeah, you did, thank you.
You have an increase in enrollment, a significant, and this still working.
it works.
I think the area of concern, I think that we would say, when we look at supports across the district, is intervention at Noble Intermediate School, because we did, when we reconfigured, we did move some Title I up here, but it was minimal compared to what K-4 saw as increasing. So I think that would be a piece that it was a harder, decision. I think I don't want to speak for you, but I think that is something that your staff would say is also an area of concern.
Yes, that is the area. So one of the things, when the strategy when you make these cuts, so we're sitting here, we understand that we have a responsibility to our community to navigate the tax situation, and also to put a school out there that can do what it's supposed to do. So when you sit there and you try to imagine a school and you look at your resources, you need to put people in, when kids walk through the door, they go to their classroom, there needs to be that person there. That is your sort of first line where you don't cut. The people who are still very much facing students that are the intervention teachers, those people who will pull students out who are struggling a little bit, maybe need those interventions, those are the places when you're in these situations that you go, that's where you can cut, because they just don't pull those students out. And I'm not saying that I want to cut those positions, I really don't. But also we know that we need to get to a place with the budget that is something that the public can swallow. So that's the battle, and we all 2 intervention folks, so the behavior and intervention coordinator. Really, really important. If, you know, those are things that, boy, if we could put some things back in, those would be my priority, because we're screaming for intervention. It's really important. Families are like, where, you know, who's helping my kid, and teachers are like, who's helping this kid? And so I would tell you that. But I also understand where we are with the budget, and we can open in the fall.
What kind of, role does an intervention specialist play in bullying behavior? Or, I mean, I think part of what, when we put those positions in place, it was to deal with the bullying problem.
Yeah, and so we track our data, we do weekly, and we do monthly, and then obviously yearly. And so since we've added those, at the time it was 3 positions, there was essentially a coach and then 2 behavior interventionists. And at the time that we added those in, our school already had 2 behavior interventionist folks. And so there was a time when we went to 4, and so right now, with a cut, we're at 1. And so I will say that the 2 folks that we have right now, world class, and what the systems that they have put in place, our data is incredible. Like, we're talking about some weeks are like, and we track the weeks longitudinally, so we can see the same week of the school year vertically, and every single data point is lower, and it's not even close. It's massively lower, like sometimes 1/10 of what it was 2 years ago for suspension incidents, overall just behavior referrals, which are just a write-up, it could be a major or a minor. Our attendance is better, truancy's down, chronic absenteeism is down. So the role, what those roles play is that, and what they're able to do right now is, when they first came on, they were operating in sort of those red, orange kids, like kids who are really, really struggling, that you were hearing about. And now with their proactive stuff, the systems that they're putting in place, a lot of it is prevention. And so there's still kids who need some of that, like direct stuff and daily. Every single day, they're working directly with students, but their systems have been unbelievable as far as the change in our school, in our hallways, cafeteria, outside at wellness. It really is remarkable, and I think if you talk to anybody who has been in that building for more than just this year, and even definitely this year, but if people have seen it, they would say it's a completely different school, and I think there's a lot of reasons for that, but certainly these 2 people are really important to that.
Not in favor of cutting those positions.
Is there data to show those students that they're working with that those interventions are improving their grades? Like, is it positively affecting their schoolwork?
Or
So the data,
I don't, not to interrupt, but I would also,
The ones around them?
that's.
Yeah, is it not as straightforward as that? Yeah.
It's not as straightforward, it's just them, yeah, that's, and the other piece I'll add, and I'm done.
No, you're fine.
Is what the benefit of that is going forward for them, and the behaviors that they are learning, the coping mechanisms they're learning for the schools that they'll then go to. And it's hard to measure, but.
so I would tell you that exactly what you just said, the impact to the rest of the school. And I won't tell you that there's nothing. There's not days that go by that we're not, you know, working with students and kind of just sifting through and helping kids kind of get it back together, work through some stuff. But it's incredible the work that they've done. And so the measurement, not necessarily individual students, but as a collective group, the data is staggering.
Well, and I think unless you've actually been in the classroom and seen how those interventionists work, it's hard to understand how valuable they are.
Yep.
But I've seen it firsthand, so I'm with Peg that those would be, at least one of them, would be a position that I would find difficult to cut, because I do think it directly affects students and their learning. So, yeah.
That's all right, I just wanted to say that, not really, I think that, you know, you've done, sounds like everything's going really well, I won't take anything away from what you do, but you're also comparing 7th graders to 6th graders. And there's a world of difference between 7th graders and 6th graders.
sixth grade to sixth grade. So I agree with you on that, and so that's one of the things that I wanna know as well, cause I don't disagree with you.
I don't
fifth and
have the
seventh.
data, so I don't know.
But when you look at sixth grade to sixth grade, it's remarkable.
Good.
Is the social worker on this list the behavior person?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you take what you've learned this year and apply it without the interventionist?
So, I'll tell you, we've learned a ton. When these people have jobs that some of the things that they're doing are not necessarily going to be able to be covered in other places. I'm not gonna tell you that our school's gonna fall apart, because it's not. Our team is incredible. They're top notch, but to say that, you know, their job is done and, you know, things are, that also isn't true. And so, I wouldn't say that you can take somebody away and say, you know, they fixed the situation and it's completely done.
No, that's
It's
not what I'm
ongoing.
saying, I was just thinking of the teachers, were the teachers able to acquire some of the skills so they
100%.
can implement it in the classroom rather than in the intervention program? That's what I was asking.
Yes, the answer is yes.
I think the concern for me is though, how do they do that at the same time we want them to have an increased focus on improving academic skill? It feels to me like a step backwards to, okay, now we have to have teachers go back to managing these behaviors. Because new students coming in haven't had the benefit of this, so they really are going to have to implement whatever those processes were themselves.
I hear it, I'm just wondering, we've got PBIS in all of the schools, which is teaching behavior.
Yes.
My fourth grade is, I've been in that school, I know what they're saying now, I mean, so, again, we should be getting better behavior, we've got stuff in place and have put in place that should be showing improvements, and I think that we are seeing them, and I agree with you, you know, if we could have everything we could have, then it would be wonderful, but 9% tax increase is a little tough right now, so I appreciate what you've done, I really do. But, I do, because
You know,
I do know.
The combination for me too of that big of an increase in your population and the number of cuts you're making compared to other schools that are potentially seeing a decrease.
And the thing is knowing who's coming in, you know, other than the random ones that are, we know who we're getting from from Knowlton. And so you know that, you'll know the percentage of students that you need to keep an eye on in this area. And my understanding is it's fairly large.
That I don't know.
So
Yeah, just in general, your numbers are.
I have a fifth grader, I sat at the meeting and I left and I said, I'm gonna have fifth and sixth grader next year, like, I need to know more. So I did meet with my economics who were there today, because I was like, I need to wrap my head around this before I could support any of this, because as a parent, like, it's a very awkward word parent hat, I was not thrilled. Concerned, thank you.
Well, I
Good
would
work.
say,
So one of my questions is, with all of this, I definitely feel a lot better, obviously until it's implemented. Who knows what this will actually look at? One of my questions was looking at the population coming up from Knowlton, and to second that, 100%, Michelle and Elise have done a fabulous job. You go into that school, that, at the fourth grade, that is one of the benefits, I think, of the fourth grade coming together this year, is everyone's coming together at once, they're getting the same expectations, the same everything, all even playing field, and I think that's done wonders, and so I think that coming in is a benefit, and will hopefully help. But I don't recall hearing or seeing any reductions to like ed techs, interventionists, anything at Knowlton. I'm wondering with that giant chunk of students, like a massive reduction in their population and massive growth in your population, if that's worth looking at to see if moving, like, does it make sense, either move or keep, or whoever's, you know, wherever they're at on the pole,
We
but.
still got a third grade.
Thank you,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
point I was trying to make, so thank
Okay.
you. Because you've got an increase, and, yeah, where's that balance?
you can go, if it was you.
So at this point, you have 2 interventionists, right?
So I have 2 behavior interventionists and I have 2 academic interventionists. And 1 academic intervention ed tech.
Okay, and you're looking at reducing by 1 interventionist coordinator?
Each. So that coordinator position is somebody who's also doing interventions, but she just sort of quarterbacks the other interventions.
So she quarterbacks interventionists and.
Ed tech, so one academic intervention teacher, one academic intervention ed tech, and then one behavior intervention. That's what is in the proposed budget.
Okay. All right.
A couple of years ago, I don't think I was even on the board, you proposed some real serious cuts and nobody thought it was gonna work. And you managed to pull it off. So if you can do that with the seventh graders, I'm sorry, but what you were proposing, my eyebrows were going up. It's like, whoa. So my hat's off to you, make it happen. I got it.
But we didn't actually do that. The taxpayers put money back and we did something very different.
I don't think in his, I think, yes.
No,
We did.
I gave you some money to
Wasn't
do
it?
it, and you pulled it off. I still didn't think you could, but you did. So, I'm giving you,
Unless you
credit.
want.
Hey, I don't say that very often, you know.
The behavior coordinator, does she have a different position that she'll be moving to in the district?
Yes.
Okay.
We're not losing anybody. I mean, we're not cutting a position, we're just moving it
We
around.
would move that one around, yes. And also, just for full disclosure, there are 2 school counselors here, and there will be 2 school counselors. The proposal is to keep 2 school counselors in this building. And I,
Mike, can I give you a homework assignment?
Sure.
Could you do a visual for us so that we can look at the before and after of what has happened in your school since you implemented this program?
And when you say that, are you looking for, like, when I told you behavior and things like that, are you looking for that piece? Or are you looking for staff numbers?
I'm looking for behavior.
Yeah, I 100% can do that.
That'd be great. Thank you. That would be really helpful.
and you'd like it for next week, right?
I would, yes.
Yes,
So we
that's
have
easy.
a few meetings, so, okay.
Thank you.
It is super exciting, and I hate to get that, have that be overshadowed by the budget, but it's super cool that that's gone so well. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm amazed at, just in social media and what comes into our email box. The complaints about bullying at your level. It's.
Night and day.
Yeah, night and day. I haven't seen any in the last
Yeah.
6 months.
And I don't want them
Right, and again, there's work we do every single day.
Yes,
So it's
yeah.
not perfect, but we're getting there.
Yeah, making progress.
Sure.
So what's the fifth grade look like?
Fifth grade, so currently this year, we have 10 classroom teachers. We will have 12 classroom teachers in fifth grade next year.
Mirroring what currently is happening at Milton.
Correct.
The 12 sections.
I was wondering about do they self-contain one teacher or do they flow around or do they?
So they self-contain and they flex. So for a literacy block, they flex. And so that, so self-contained except for.
Self-contained, regular classroom teacher teaches all subjects.
Correct.
With the exception of the interventions that reflect on.
Correct.
Just curious.
So of these roles that are being reduced, how many are being, repurposed?
Another building.
Yeah.
Well, we have one, the position for the Ed Tech 2, that was the restorative justice, that used to be
The planning room.
planning.
Correct.
That is unfilled, so that
Right.
position.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's a reduction that.
right, so maybe potentially 2 would not currently have a position.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean they won't have a position, because we know that things are open.
Okay. So everybody else is being repurposed at this point?
We're moving into, for instance, well, no, honestly, because there's, like, so, yeah, the PE position will be over. So, and it will impact not necessarily the person at NIS, but somebody else in the district. looking at the grades. The grade 6 is a reduction as well.
A bit off topic, Denise, can I ask you, I've been watching today all of the reaction to everybody's trying to do their budgets and talking about how many staff are going to be lost in different districts. Do you think there's any potential response to that for this budget year?
Not quite sure what you're asking.
There is districts are, I've looked at 2 today that are gonna be losing over 100 staff members.
That's a lot.
Yeah, so is there any potential that something happens in this budget to fix that? I mean, it's devastating, we are far from alone in these conversations, so, and it looks like some districts are way worse off and really losing
Just over the border.
an unsustainable number of people. So, I mean, is there any vehicle by which this gets adjusted before?
When we went to the,
No, it's-
workshop for 279, it
No.
doesn't sound like they were well aware and are well aware of the challenges with staff.
Right.
And just.
This is scary.
Well, in some ways, it feels like you're just pulling, pulling.
You're taking it apart.
Yeah.